Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching India's World with your host, Kriti Mishra. India has been providing development assistance to its neighbours for decades, but the extent has grown exponentially in recent times. India's humanitarian diplomacy is likely to become a more powerful and more enduring facet of India's engagement with the world. And to discuss the way forward, I'm joined by Mr. Vishnu Prakash, former ambassador, and Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, foreign affairs expert. Welcome to Sunset TV, both of you. Dr. Chaulia, as Ambassador was mentioning, from hydroxychloroquine medicines to now shipping out COVID-19 vaccines, India is stepping up its health assistance. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought about a new dimension in India's role as a global health provider and its health and humanitarian assistance. Your take, sir?
Well, Kriti, indeed, every box of our vaccines that's being shipped across the world has the Sanskrit phrase, Sarve Santu Niramaya, let no one suffer from disease. So it is in our ethos, it's in our civilisational greatness that we have always done this from times immemorial. And I think that's what we're emphasizing. And in that sense, it's an extension of India's identity as a great nation, which rises to the occasion and treats the world as one family and the 7.6 billion people. And our vision, which Prime Minister Modi has articulated, is even if one person remains sick, then in a contagious environment like a pandemic, none of us are sick. So our health is directly linked to the health of and well-being of the people of the rest of the world. I think that is the basis for doing this. And I think the speed, the scale at which we're doing, the cost, all these are really remarkable. And people have woken up and realized that we are pharmacy of the world, yes, but also a medical superpower. And in that sense, I think our capacities and will both have come together. Sometimes there are countries with capacity, like for example, if you just look at the number of vaccines being manufactured, the data shows, the World Economic Forum is saying the US has 4.8 billion doses lined up for manufacture in the US in 2021. We are a little bit less than that, 3.8 billion or so, and China is less than us. But the point is the US is reserving it primarily for its domestic use. What Ambassador was talking about, the America first or the vaccine nationalism. We are, in our case, there's no contradiction between India being a nationalistic and a rising power and also showing international solidarity and humanitarian assistance and all these things. So we have kind of like, bridged this contradiction between nationalism and internationalism. And I think that's a very sophisticated sign of a sophisticated nation. We are not narrow nationalists. And of course, those who challenge us, we will compete and we will fight back. But the bulk of humanity is not challenging us in any way. In fact, they're looking up to India. And I think this is the right time when we step up in a moment. What is the old saying? A friend in need is a friend indeed, right? So we are doing it in the nick of time. Global pandemic, already more than 2.5 million people have died. And, more than 120 million have been infected. This can get much bigger, but if we are providing the solution, that will be remembered. It will add to our goodwill, to our soft power. It will have diplomatic benefits. We are not doing it for commerce. We are not gaining. It is not an export for us from which we earn hard cash or revenues. But we are making a statement that India is a provider of solution. India is a leader in the emerging post-COVID world order.
All right, you used a very important phrase about bridging the gap. Dr. Chaulia, as India shipped out the COVID-19 vaccines to various countries, the first recipients were India's neighboring countries. This certainly underlines our firm commitment to neighbourhood first policy. I'd just like to understand, can India offset Chinese influence to a certain degree through its vaccine and humanitarian assistance?
Well, Kriti, winning hearts and minds of people in South Asia and Indian Ocean region is always a very important goal of our statecraft. And to that extent, it's always been a number one priority. In fact, even our development assistance, regular ODA, overseas development assistance, the bulk of it goes to neighboring countries and then to sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of Asia. So I think so. Bhutan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Maldives. These have always been major recipients of Indian assistance. So our priorities are always our as the first concentric circle, to use a Chanakya's famous spatial uh, notion of geopolitics. The first concentric circle is our immediate neighborhood. So the mandala. So we are very much focused on the mandala, and I think we have shown. In fact, you saw the kind of glowing thank yous coming from all the neighboring countries, starting with the Prime Minister of Bhutan, of Bangladesh, and Maldives. All of them, Sri Lanka, they are truly grateful, because see the efficacy of the Chinese vaccine. Even the Chinese are also like forcing countries to take their vaccine. The point is, the clinical trials have not shown adequate efficacy, and many countries are finding themselves, they are just being sold lemons, don't really solve the health crisis. So I think, and some countries have flipped. For example, even far away from our neighborhood, like Brazil and all, have realized. Sri Lanka realized recently and has announced that they will stop taking Chinese vaccines, even though China has got a lot of influence in Sri Lanka through port projects and through infrastructure, through loans, through takeover of strategic real estate and all that. So yes, I think what we are doing now is a life-saving business or life-saving task, and I think it will be recognized in the hearts and minds of people. It will definitely overcome the politics in some of our neighboring countries, which is to blame India. Some elites in these countries try to turn their population against India as a part of their domestic football, and they try to create an impression that India is a big brother, or it's imposing its will on us. It's interfering in our internal affairs. But when people see what India is doing now in this form, it will definitely affect them. And ultimately, when the societies of these countries, PM Modi's diplomacy in the neighborhood, Sagar and all these concepts have been to win the hearts and minds of the ordinary people in those countries. It's not just between government to government or business to business. It's also people to people. So I think it will make a difference, because ordinary people, its survival is at stake. This is a killer pandemic, and when India steps in, like an angel, practically, it will be remembered. So yes, we are showing a different face compared to the Chinese. Like Ambassador saying, Chinese have been commercially exploiting these countries, even demanding conditions. In some Southeast Asian countries, they were saying that you have to, oppose any ASEAN, the group, the regional group. You have to oppose an ASEAN consensus that will go against China. If you want our vaccines, you have to change your approach to other things. So they're linking it with clear conditionalities, and they interfere in the internal affairs of these countries, although they say we are in favor of non-interference. So I think we are setting a different example. Only thing is, some people say that we do the good things, but we don't get bang for the buck, and we don't convert it into diplomatic capital. So I think the follow through, I think the public relations, public diplomacy is very good now, but we need much more going forward, because the world still thinks, many people, especially the Western media, are still talking about Chinese vaccines and Russian vaccines.
Right.
There's less of a understanding about India and how we are filling the gap. So I think we need to do better publicity of what we are doing, and we should be proud of our achievement. People said, when PM spoke about how we were the first responder to the earthquake in Nepal, I remember saying, "Oh, why are you bragging? You should keep your head low and just do the good work." The point is, if we don't make a statement, people won't know that India came to the rescue of Nepal within minutes.
All right, you're making a very, very interesting point there. But before we end this conversation, I'd just like to get a perspective on Afghanistan as well. Dr. Chaulia, India has been the largest regional contributor to Afghan reconstruction. How do you analyze India's role and participation there?
Well, as you know, Prime Minister recently launched the Shahatut Dam. Earlier, we had built the Salma Dam there. So these are huge, hydroelectric, projects there. And we have built the Afghan parliament. PM went to Kabul to personally inaugurate it a few years ago.
Yes.
And hospitals, roads, telecom, and we have done it at the sacrifice also of our personnel, many of whom have been attacked by Pakistani proxies like Haqqani network and Taliban. So we have even given our blood for the sake of stability and moderate outcomes in that country. And I think we will continue to support the nation building and the state building efforts there as the peace process goes forward. Recently, Zalmay Khalilzad, the Afghan peace envoy, briefed Dr. Jaishankar, and I've heard that we are being involved much more, or we hope to be involved much more in the political process going on there. But Kriti, I'd just like to add one more thing. I think we must also give credit to our armed forces, because see, in many of these disaster relief operations, humanitarian assistance things we have done, our Navy has become a first responder, and all the evacuations we have done, relief supply, water supplies, cyclones, hurricanes, wherever they are in the region, Indian Navy is there, and I think our Air Force, Navy together have expanded our reach in such a big way, because we don't believe in territorial aggression. We don't claim that like the Chinese do with most of their neighbors. So our thing is that our forces can be supportive of good outcomes. We are not threatening. So when our military, our ships go out and hand out essential commodities and supplies for survival of people struggling from natural disaster, there's nothing like it, and I think that shows that they can depend on us for security cooperation, security assistance. So there's also that element where our Navy is honing its capability, Air Force honing capability in what they call HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, or what they call non-traditional threats, which are faced by humanity. So I think that's where India is now net provider of the security in our region, especially the expanded Indo-Pacific, and humanitarian assistance is one of the means by which we are doing this.
Absolutely, sir. But before we end this conversation, closing comments from both my guests. India in the 21st century, geopolitics and India's soft power ambitions. Your take. Dr. Chaulia, India has arrived?
Yes, and in fact, we are dependable and we are reliable, Kriti. If you remember, when Prime Minister came to power, he told Sheikh Hasina, his Bangladeshi counterpart, "Aap mujh par bharosa rakhiye." And that's exactly the word I want to emphasize. Bharosa, the trust or vishwas, that is what matters in today's world, because of this rising nationalism and expansionism and narrow tendencies. On the other hand, we are showing our, liberal avatar to the world, and that's very important. Because people have to trust, and in today's time, trusted supply chains, trusted value chains, trusted partners matter more than untrustworthy ones, and we are showing the difference between the grain and chaff through our actions.
Absolutely. So the biggest takeaway is, aap hum pe bharosa rakhiye. On that note, thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador Prakash and Dr. Chaulia.